Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So a little bit of change of scenery. I decided to film this video in my kitchen today because one, I have the house to myself, so I can freely talk without the TV going on, Danny here, all of that. And to be honest, I was sitting here and I wanted to film this video soon, didn't really know when, kind of randomly had the time today, and I figured, you know what, might as well do it. So let's get right into it. So for today's video, we are going to be talking about our journey to conceiving our little bun in the oven. So I just want to put a disclaimer already, because when I've told people about our road to conceiving, sometimes it can come off as the impression that Danny and I maybe struggled with medical fertility issues, and I don't want to give someone false hope. I don't want to paint this as a picture of, you know, that's what we went through, because that is a totally different scenario, and I don't have the information that someone who is going through something like that would be looking for. But I do feel like this video could be helpful for some of you out there, because in case you are heading down this road of beginning to start a family and you're starting to wonder why is it taking a little bit longer than maybe what you've anticipated, maybe your solution could be something like what we went through, and it'll save you a little bit of the worry and stress that it's something bigger than what it is, or it'll give you the clarification that maybe it is something a little bit more serious, so that way you can go and seek medical professional help. So I'm gonna first kind of go over exactly mine and Danny's, I guess, game plan, is if that's how you want to call it, although that kind of sounds weird, but that's the best way I can put it, for how we decided to begin our trying process. I'm gonna move this. Can you see my ketchup bottle? I was just eating, so. Anyways, so first, right off the bat, when Danny and I got engaged and we're, you know, doing our wedding planning and everything, kids obviously is something that is an important topic. It's an important issue, and it's obviously something that as a soon-to-be married couple, you're gonna want to talk about. And so our deal was we were a little bit on two different sides here. Danny couldn't wait to be a dad. I mean, if it could happen right away, best thing for him, you know. For me, I knew I wanted kids at some point, but I didn't want it to happen right away, especially just getting like married and then having babies. Our biggest reason, and why Danny agreed to that, and my biggest reason for that, biggest reason, is that Danny and I did not live together before we were married, so I really wanted to take this time as newlyweds to just enjoy ourselves, have our freedom, and, you know, just settle into this new way of life and getting to know my partner. So we agreed to hold off on even having the discussion of when we'd start trying for kids for at least 1 year. We wanted just 1 year of like not having that burden on us and everything. And I don't want to say burden because I know that has like a negative connotation, but you know what I mean. Just, we didn't want the stress of like, okay, like let's start trying already. Like, you know, we just wanted to chill out for that first year. Also, I mean, we didn't have a whole lot going on. I mean, we were blessed enough to have a house, but this house wasn't fully furnished. What you see going on in my house, if you follow me on social media, a lot of that took literally up until this point to finally get to this place. I mean, we took our time furnishing this house. So with that being said, we were comfortable with that too, because I personally have always been someone that has had very regular menstrual cycles. My period is so regular, and I can basically time it down to the hour of which I'm gonna start. So I really didn't have any concerns because I knew my period was very regular. So I was like, cool, I think I'll be fine. After that year had passed, it was like, okay, let's start talking about it. You know, we decided that just regular old birth control, I was on the pill, would just be the easiest solution. I mean, for me, that's just, it was easy for me to take it. I didn't have any negative side effects from my birth control. I was on low estrogen, and yeah, it was like honestly really cool. I actually really enjoyed being on birth control. It definitely wasn't an issue for me. So then once we started to come around to the idea, and then I was like, okay. And then I remember there was a time where, okay, the full year had already gone by that we were married, and then, we're like, okay, let's start talking about what would be a good time to maybe start trying and this and that. I remember there was like a month that I had like messed up on my days of the birth control, and I was like, okay, and I just was like kind of freaking out a little bit, in the sense of like, oh my gosh, like what if I'm pregnant, So I went ahead and took a pregnancy test, and it was negative. And I remember in that moment, instead of being very relieved, I was actually kind of sad. And I think that to me was like the signal of, okay, why are you feeling this way? And so I really had to ask myself, like, are you feeling sad because you're ready? And if you're ready, okay, start envisioning your life with a baby, being pregnant. Are you ready for this change? And I remember being so much more comfortable with those thoughts than I was like a year ago or 2 years ago even. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm ready to begin this journey like soon. So during that time period, we had a few things coming up. 2019 was definitely like a busy year for us. We had like several family events. We had big trips planned. We basically went out of town every month last year. It was insane, but a lot of fun. And so there was 2 really big things happening that year, which was going to be one, my cousin's wedding, which was at the end of April. And then in May, we were actually we're taking a family vacation to Disney World. So I remember telling him, you know what? I think I want Miranda's wedding, like my cousin's wedding, to be the marker of like when that'll be the last round of birth control that I use. And like, let's just get off of it and let's just see what happens. Like, let's start trying. And Danny was all about it. He was like, yes, like, okay, like if that's what, if you're comfortable, if you're ready, like I'm ready. So cool. So literally May of 2019 was when we actively started trying. Now, I love talking about this stuff with other women. I've always loved asking my clients about their experiences, their journey, their experience with birth control, anything like that, because I feel like that's the best way to get information is from actually talking with people. So every time I would talk to a client, you hear different stories, but a lot of times I would hear clients be like, oh girl, like, it'll happen. Like I got off my birth control and 1 month later, boom, pregnant. Or, oh yeah, it took like 2 or 3 months max. Or like, the longest period would be like 6 months or so. And I'd be like, okay, cool. And then like a month rolled by, 2 months rolled by, 3 months rolled by. And I was like, damn, like I'm not pregnant yet. Like, and I will say during those like 1 to 3 month period after like getting off my birth control, I did notice that my period didn't come back right away, which is normal. So I was like, okay, it definitely took some time for my period to adjust back to what it was prior to birth control. And keep in mind, I was not someone who had been on birth control for a very long time. I literally got on the pill the year before we got married. So it had only been like, I think max 2 years that I was on birth control consistently. So other than that, I never had any hormonal birth control prior to that. So I just thought, relatively quick, my system would kind of get back to regulating itself. And then I started to get a little concerned because of that. Like I was like, well, if it happens so fast for these girls, like why is it not happening for me? I was like, okay, but I didn't want to think too much into it. And then, during like the 4th or 5th month off birth control is when I had, talked to people who it took them a little longer to get pregnant. And then you meet those people who, my heart goes out to them that it took them years. You're talking 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 years of trying. And as much as someone says, and I know I've had people tell me this, and I know you meant well, and I know you were coming from a very good place, and I was never angry at someone for telling me this. But the more I started to learn and the more I started to realize that getting pregnant was not as easy as some people like to make it seem or sound. When people would tell me, oh, don't worry about it. Like, oh, it's because you're stressing about it. Oh, girl, as soon as you stop thinking about it, it'll happen. When I heard those things, I got very frustrated, not at them at all, because I don't blame them, because their experiences have led them to that mindset. And honestly, I'm happy for them because that means that maybe their experience with conceiving came a lot easier and faster. And that is a blessing, especially if it's something that you're planning for. I mean, it's a blessing regardless in my eyes, but you know what I mean. Especially when you're actively trying for it to come that easy. It's like, wow, that's fantastic. And I only got frustrated because I started to really look more into like fertility issues, like when to start becoming concerned, you know, what some women may go through and experience. And I feel like when you tell someone that, like, oh, just don't worry about it, it'll happen when it happens, or like, oh, it's because you're stressing about it, like, you know, just don't think about it and it'll happen. When you're telling a woman those things, you're almost giving her the okay to not take her health seriously, as far as like her reproductive health. Because unfortunately, there are some times where women may have a more serious issue that maybe she should get looked into about. And if you're telling her don't stress about it, well, chances are she's never going to go get checked because, or her partner may never go get checked because it's like, okay, yeah, it's just me, I'm stressing about it. So that's my only issue with those sayings, you know. But like I said, I know anyone who ever told me that was coming from a very good place, and I hold no negative feelings towards that. It's just something that, because I used to say that too, because that's all I would hear people say. So I've had to learn that that is not the case sometimes. So after looking into it, here is something that is probably useful information if any of you out there are currently trying or are planning to try. If you are having unprotected sex regularly for at least a year and you are in your 20s, you're fairly young, and you have not had a pregnancy, that is a red flag to maybe go just get things checked out. You and your partner. Because just because we're the women does not mean that it's always necessarily on us. There could be things that your partner is doing or that your partner may have going on that they don't know about that is also causing you to not successfully conceive. So 1 year. And I learned that actively trying doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, I want to get pregnant. If you are someone who isn't even thinking about pregnancy, but you know you've been having unprotected regular sex for over a year, and regular sex means like 1 to 2 times a week throughout a 12-month period, unprotected, and you haven't had a pregnancy scare, like, and at some point maybe you do want kids in the future, I would go get yourself checked out too, just to be careful, because you never know. Like, there could be something else going on that you don't know about. And when the time comes that you are ready for a child, you know, you're going to save yourself maybe a lot of time and worry. So just a heads up. And then that time period gets even shorter and shorter as we get older, because obviously as we as women get older, our chances of pregnancy become less and less and less. So once I learned that, I told Danny, I said, okay, after we've like marked 1 calendar year of trying and nothing's happened, I said, you and I both need to go because there can be something more serious going on that we need to get looked into. So he agreed, everything. As you all know, we announced our pregnancy and I found out I was pregnant in May of this year. So it literally was exactly 1 year to the mark that we conceived. I don't know if you want to call that God's timing. I don't know if it's just a coincidence. Whatever you want to look at that, however you want to look at that. But that will never not blow my mind. So did I have to change things in our trying phase to become successful at conceiving? Yes. And I'll go ahead and show you guys and tell you guys what I found out my issue was and how I exactly fixed it. So right off the bat, I would say at around the 6-month mark is when I was like, okay, we got to put our foot down. Like, something is just not happening here. Prior to that 6-month mark, I was not actively tracking my ovulation days. I was just tracking my period and kind of going off my app when it says I was ovulating or supposed to be ovulating. So I was like, okay. And I've met women that are like, oh, I'm ovulating right now. Like they know when they're ovulating naturally, like they don't have to take an ovulation test. And I would always get so amazed with that because I don't feel like I'm someone that I knew when I was ovulating. I knew when my period was about to come like the week before or so, but I never could tell when I was ovulating. It was weird to me when people would say that. So I was like, okay, well, if my app says I'm ovulating, then I guess I'm ovulating. So that's when, you know, we would go ahead and do the deed. But obviously nothing was happening. So then I started looking into the ovulation test that you can buy at basically any store, you know. They're basically like pregnancy tests, but instead of tracking for pregnancy, they track for ovulation. So I would take ovulation stick test every time my app said that I was ovulating. And I did that for about the 7th, 8th, and I think even the 9th month of trying. And every time I took an ovulation stick test, it said I wasn't ovulating. And now I started to become even more scared. I started to become even more concerned because I was like, shit, am I just not ovulating? Like, I'm getting my period, like I don't know what's going on. So like every time that like we've been trying it, like obviously nothing's taking because I'm not releasing an egg or something's going on. I started to really freak out. And at this point I had really like invited Danny into this world of like period tracking, ovulation tracking, because I was like, this is a team effort, we got to like be on the same page. And towards that part of our trying phase, I started to really regret it, like having him be so involved, because now every month he was like, are we ovulating? Like, are we ovulating? You know, when's our next ovulation day? And I would just be like, dude, I don't know. Like at this point, I don't know. And it would always kind of make me a little sad every time he asked, because it would just be so like, you know, and even if the ovulation stick said like negative, I would be like, well, I mean, it says on my app, so like, let's just go ahead and try. So we would, you know, go ahead and have sex and then wait a couple weeks. I would take a pregnancy test and it would for sure be negative. So I even stopped telling him like, hey, I'm gonna take a pregnancy test today, because it just was a bummer every time I would tell him like, oh, let's take a test, and like it wouldn't be anything. So I just stopped telling him about that and just started doing it on my own. And then finally, I think around the 9th month, 8th or 9th month, I can't really remember, he was like, hey, so like when's our next ovulation date? And I was like, well, it's supposed to be this day. And he made a joke, and I'm glad he made that joke, because that's what got my wheels turning. He was like, I was explaining to him the issue I was having. I was like, hey, like, look, every time I take an ovulation test, it's just like not coming out positive. So I really don't know what's going on. Like, maybe I should go to the doctor already. And he was like, can't you take an ovulation test like every day, and maybe we'll just catch it? Like maybe we have to take one every day. And I remember thinking like, that's ridiculous. I was like, you know how much these ovulation test things are? Like, I'm not gonna be buying one for like, I don't know how many days, for I don't know how many months. Like, but then it got me thinking, and I was like, wait a minute. There has to be something like that out there. And I only knew that because of an account I follow on Instagram. And it's this girl, she's a fitness girl, and she's very big into like natural family planning, I guess is the best way to put it. So she's not into hormonal birth control. She uses a natural form of birth control, and her route is by using a body thermometer temperature. And what you do is you take your temperature every morning, and as we get closer to ovulation and our periods, our body temperature, our basal body temperatures change. And after you've been doing that for a few months, the temperature will like, device starts to recognize, okay, like it's recognizing your temperature increase and decrease. You're tracking it on the app of like, I started my period, I'm off my period. It'll begin to recognize your cycle, and it'll give you an accurate reading of like what days you're most fertile and what days you aren't. Now, the one that she promotes is like really expensive, like really expensive. It's called the Daisy Fertility Tracker, in case any of you want to look into that one. I looked into it. Obviously, I had known about it, and I was like, ugh, it is expensive, but I was like, hey, if it's going to work, it'll be worth it. But someone who I like to consider a smart shopper, I was like, let me just see if there's something else on the market that does the same thing, but is cheaper. So I went ahead and Amazoned it up, baby. And sure enough, I did find something off of Amazon. So off of Amazon, this is what I found. And this is the thermometer. So it's like thermometer, but instead of TH, it's an F. So thermometer. This does the exact same thing as the Daisy. It is basically just a body temperature thermometer. Every morning, all I would do was put it under my tongue. You hold it for a few seconds. It has an app. It's Bluetooth synced. It would read my body temperature, record it for that day, and then I would record, you know, like whatever. If I wasn't on my period, didn't record anything, you know, and then it would start to recognize when my period was coming, and then it would just, you know, ask me to verify. Like obviously if I started, I would mark it on my app, like started period. So it started to save the information, it started to sync. And then it has other detailed things that you can log in there, which is like your cervical mucus, which is a very important part to just keep track of if you are planning to conceive, because your cervical mucus texture will tell you a lot about where you are with your ovulation. So then I started to do that as well. And at first I was like not sure to trust this because this was $49.99, I believe, on Amazon. And I was like, that's a big jump in price from like the $300 one to this one. And but I read the reviews and a lot of them were very positive. So I was like, I'm gonna trust it. I mean, might as well give it a go. Now, in conjunction with using the thermometer and then tracking it on the app, as you get closer, once it starts to recognize your cycle for about like a couple months, you start to use these ovulation test strips. And these, again, you can buy off of Amazon. These do the exact same thing that the ones from the store does, but of course you get a really big pack of them because you're gonna be testing your ovulation very frequently, not just during the couple days that your app says you might be. So it just comes in a pre-wrapped thing like this. You pee in a little cup, you can dip the strip in there. Instructions are super like straightforward. And it gives you an example here. There's like a test strip, and as you get closer to your prime, like ovulation day, the test strip will get darker and darker and darker. And when it's at its darkest is when that's your signal that, hey, you are good to go. You need to go. Like you need to do the deed because girl, you're about to ovulate. So that's what I did. You guys, when I saw the first positive ovulation test strip from this, I was like, jumping up and down. I like ran out of the bathroom. I told Danny, I was like, look, I'm ovulating. Like we had never had that experience before. I was like, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe like we're ovulating. Like and the thing is, I also didn't physically feel different. So like, I really am someone that I can't tell when I'm ovulating. And what I learned through all of this tracking was that my app, by just tracking my period that I was using before, was way off on my ovulation day. I have a different ovulation cycle than like the typical woman, I guess, has. So my window is a lot shorter and is just on a day that was like a day or two off than what my app was telling me. And it being a day or two off will more than likely not result in a positive like pregnancy test, because our window is so short, which is going back to my previous comment on why, you know, we're led to believe sometimes that pregnancy can be so easy. They scare us when we're younger, right? Like, oh, don't be going out there and, you know, acting a fool or whatever, you're gonna get pregnant or whatever. Like, you know, we've all heard it growing up, especially as young women. It's not that easy to get pregnant. It is not that easy. The timing has to be so perfect and so many things need to align for you to be pregnant. And I learned all of this through my experience. I am like mind blown. So I definitely have changed my views on pregnancy, becoming pregnant, you know, fertility issues. I feel like I was always a very like, you know, I understood those things before and I was like very sensitive about it before, like to an extent, but even more so now when I know someone is trying and they're not having any success or any luck, I like want to share what I did because maybe this is all you need. But like I said before in the very beginning, if it's been a long time, maybe you've already done this, definitely go ahead and seek professional help because, you know, I feel blessed enough to know that this was something that I was able to do and find out and be successful, because I would say after the second or third month of doing this whole process is when we finally had our positive pregnancy test. And like I said in my video, my first trimester video, something just felt right. I feel like the tracking was so on point. I just could not believe that like that last time that we, you know, tried, like I was not even, I don't even know if I would have been willing to accept that like it wasn't going to be a positive pregnancy test, which sounds kind of scary and crazy now, but honestly, that's just how well I was like, wow, okay, now I really know and recognize when I'm ovulating. So that's what we did to finally have a successful time conceiving. So I've made my decision already that after we have our baby, I really don't think I'm gonna get back on hormonal birth control. Now knowing that this body temperature checking worked perfectly fine for me, I think I will just continue to do this as far as, you know, natural family planning goes, and just keep doing this, and again, still utilize it for when we're ready for the next one. So that's basically how we got here. And I really hope that this is helpful for some of you. I know I didn't know a whole lot about ovulation and tracking, that this was even all a thing. And that's because I feel like I'm someone who's not totally naive. I wasn't totally naive prior to becoming pregnant of like different things in the women's reproductive system. But lo and behold, there was a lot that I still didn't know. And I feel like, unfortunately for us women, there is a lot that we don't know about our own systems and like what is possible for us and what our options are. And that makes me really sad, because I think if maybe more women knew about that, maybe, you know, people would have a better time, or, you know, a higher success rate of trying to conceive when they're ready to, you know, than having to go through struggles of wondering why, what's not happening, and then just hoping and praying that you know, happen to just have sex at the right time and end up pregnant, because it's not always that simple. I hope this really does help some of you guys. I really hope this kind of clarifies exactly our journey, what we went through, how we had to find a way that was going to work for us, exactly what the issue was. And you know, if you guys have any questions on this or any concerns or whatever, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'm not a medical professional. You all know that. That's all for this video. I hope you guys find it helpful. I hope and pray it'd be awesome to know that like maybe I did help someone out there. So anyways, up next in my video uploads, I really don't know what I'm gonna be posting next. I am gonna do my new updated no makeup routine, and then I decided that for my second trimester, I will be doing 2 videos. I'll be doing the first part of my second trimester and then a second part of the second trimester video, because that first one was just too long. I don't enjoy filming videos that long, and I don't enjoy editing videos that long, and I don't think any of you enjoy watching videos that long. If you do, thank you, God bless you. But for me, yeah, no, I like to keep them a little bit on the shorter and sweeter side. But yeah, so that'll be coming very soon, because we are now 19 weeks and 1 more week and we will be almost halfway through, which is crazy because it's going by so fast. And it makes me happy to know that he'll be here, but it makes me a little sad that like, oh, you know, where's the time going? So anyways, that's that for this video. Bye guys. Oh, don't forget, you can also follow me on my socials. I will link them down below in the description box, and I will link everything that I talked about here, you know, for you guys also. So see you in my next one. Bye.